Welcome to my review of the Jeff Guinn Western fictional story called Glorious. I've decided to read this book purely because the author has written quite a few interesting books. Actually, um, really wide variety of different things he's written about. Like he's done a book on the Manson murders, Jonestown. There's a book that I've got. I think that was the book really which led me on to him. Was he did a brilliant book on Jim Jones and the cult down in South America, which led me on there. And he looks like he does a lot of Western books as well. There's one I've got called The Last Gunfight, and yeah, led me on to Glorious, and I'm glad he did really, because this is a fantastic book. As you can see the image on there, set in a novel set in the American West. Definitely a book that I would recommend for people to read, especially if you love the Wild West, which I do. And it does have a lot of the sort of old Western tropes, gunslingers, outlaws, a mixture of everything. But before I'll do that, I'll go into I'll just give you a little rundown about what the book. Who's it by? So it's Jeff Guinn, as you can see on the cover. This book is about 400 pages in length. You can get it on Audible as well, and also Kindle. I'm just going to have a quick look a second just to give you some pricing. So I've just gone on Amazon here, which is where I got it from. I got the hardback version just because I got it for a lot cheaper than what's on Amazon at the moment. But this one was, I think it was like $2.50, and then another $2.50 on top for postage and packaging from America as well. Then, but you can see on Audible this is roughly about a 13-hour book or 13-hour listen, $7.99 or $1 Kindle is quite expensive, which is $9.99, but you're best off either getting a hardback version or a paperback version. To be honest, I really enjoyed reading a physical book again, and particularly with the physical book you get a sort of map that he gives you of the town as well, the town of Glorious. So you constantly have to refer to that with the story, because there's a lot of coming and going within the story as well. So I'll go into just what this is about. So Glorious is the first book in Jeff Gwynn's Cash McClendon trilogy. So Cash McClendon is the main protagonist of the piece, and the first book is centered around him and his journey to the town of Glorious in the American West. So we get introduced immediately to him on his way to the town of Glorious. He's on his way up from New Orleans and Texas up to the Arizona territory, which I think the time period here is post-Civil War, so around 1870 to 1880. And so a lot of unsettled and unsettled territory at the moment, particularly the Arizona territory, where you've got sort of burgeoning towns like Tucson, Arizona, which are the central hubs of that state to become. But Glorious is a mining town and has been set up with a view to finding a new silver or gold strike within that town itself. It's only a very, very small town, which is pretty much in Apache territory as well. But early on in the book we're introduced to this man, Cash McClendon, and he is from St. Louis, Missouri, and brought up really in poverty with a father who was no real help, to be honest. He earned his money and his teaching really working in a factory and informing on workers who were looking to unionize within their factories in St. Louis. So he caught the attention of a man by the name of Rupert Douglas. Now Rupert Douglas is one of these pioneering capitalists in the the sort of the midwestern towns, towards the east coast of America. But in St. Louis itself, you know, a very rich man. He owned the factory in which Cash was working in. Cash had really shone for the foreman of the factory manager, and then been introduced as he grew up to Rupert Douglas. Now, while he's in St. Louis, part of his job for Rupert Douglas is actually switches from informing on near strikes so that they can break the strikes up with brutally break the strikes up, or pay off the ringleaders or sack the ringleaders. Rupert Douglas then asks Cash to see if he can go to other businesses within the city in St. Louis and effectively buy them out, offer them an opportunity to sell up what they've made and move out to St. Louis, and allow Rupert Douglas to take ownership of their trade and their property and their businesses effectively. So and while that didn't work out, then, you know, other things happened. This is where Cash really does learn his the best way how to speak to people, and how to put an offer across, really work people and to get the outcome that he wanted, you know, which I found quite interesting and will pay off later on in the book. Whilst he's introduced to Rupert Douglas and he's doing this, he comes across a young Italian family, the Toritos, and there's the book surprisingly isn't so much as a massive action-packed book, but more so a sort of a romantic epic, where he falls in love with a young girl by the name of Gabrielle Torito, an Italian girl. Father's an Italian immigrant, sets up a dry goods store in St. Louis, and you know, he takes a liking to Gabrielle, and you know, they get along well. They're pretty much courting and going out with each other, and you know, they're dating somewhat, and then the sort of the hammer blow comes where Rupert Douglas asks him to approach Gabrielle's father to buy them out. In which case, you know, effectively that was the offer which they led. Which is what they led to first meet. She refuses, he refuses, he doesn't mind, he keeps on telling Rupert Douglas that, you know, he's trying to work the client and so forth. But the main hammer blow comes when, after performing so well for the industrialist Douglas, that he actually offers, and well, so much as offers, but he demands that Cash marry his daughter, which is Ellen Douglas. So Ellen is a hypochondriac, I probably would say a schizophrenic, and she's addicted to painkillers. I think it was laudanum. They said in the book as well, she was addicted to painkillers. Wild mood swings, probably a manic depressive or bipolar is what we would say now. So he doesn't really want to marry her, he wants to marry Gabrielle, and part of the condition is that he has to stop seeing the Italian girl in order to marry in and take the opportunity to be ingrained within the Douglas family and have access to the fortune. He's come from nothing, and this is his opportunity to get somewhere in the world. So he reluctantly does so, without letting on to Rupert Douglas that he's reluctant. But he's also introduced then to a character by the name of Brotigan, and this guy is like the second. He's like the right-hand man of Rupert Douglas. He's the enforcer. So this is the guy where, if Cash has failed to sort of talk people around, this Brotigan guy goes in there, roughs people up, probably kills them as well. It's later on that he dabbles in the sort of more physical aspects of getting Rupert Douglas's way. But he's referred to in the book as Killer Boots. This is a guy that they describe about, I would probably imagine 6'5", 6'6", you know, well built, really sort of rough edge, brutal guy who Cash is pretty scared of, but even so, it's only a brief momentary encounter that he has with him. And then what happens then is Gabrielle and the father actually sell out to Douglas and move away. So Cash is heartbroken, and at the same time Cash goes out and wants to see Gabrielle, leaves Ellen Douglas on her own, which his mother-in-law and Rupert Douglas had forbidden and said don't do it. She can't be trusted on her own. she'll do something silly. She'll like burn the house down, or she'll cut up all the clothes, or smash everything. And anyways, Cash comes back and she's killed herself, and she's committed suicide. He knows he's to blame because he's left her on her own, and she cut herself. She's already gone by the time he's got there, and we see with Cash that he can't really turn himself in. He's going to go to jail. He's going to get blamed for what's happened. If he doesn't do that, then he's going to get killed by this brought again Killer Boots character, because Rupert Douglas will no doubt try to exact revenge on him. So he decides to make a run for it, and this is where then we see at the start, it links into the start of the book, where he works his way down south to New Orleans, and then west through to Texas and up into the Arizona territory then, and all the while looking for the town of Glorious. And when he does get to Glorious, we see, we get introduced to a new cast of characters there, which will, they'll come in and out of the story depending on the way the story's going. And I thought Jeff Guinn was fantastic in the way in which he really brought the characters to life. They all each had a purpose, and they all each had their own character and interdependency as well there. And he really did, through the characters, bring forward through the sort of the hopes, the dreams, but also the sort of rough realities of living in a pioneer town, and constantly living on the edge with anxiety, with the threat of Apache attacks. But I'll go through some of the characters now. So we get the town of Glorious. We've got the hotel owner, which is Major Mulkins, who, this is where Cash sort of holds up in the first couple of weeks while he's in Glorious. And Cash's mission effectively is to go to Glorious, declare his love for Gabrielle. He's got money that he's stolen from Rupert Douglas's house before he's left, and he hopes to take Gabrielle, sweep her off her feet, and take her to California, where they probably won't be discovered by Rupert Douglas and Killer Boots. But so he holds up in the hotel with Major Mulkins, who is a former Union major, moved to the territory with the hope of expanding a hotel in a new gold or silver strike town. Then we're introduced to the Mayor Rogers. He's more of like your typical sort of pliant politician, trying to keep everybody on side and happy. Everyone from the prospectors to the local business owners to the army, and to people who come and go, drifters into the community as well. What we've got outside of Glorious is a place called Culloden Ranch. So this ranch is owned by a man called McPherson. Now McPherson will come into the story a little bit later on, but effectively what he's got there, he's got a huge ranch where he trades in beef and cattle and lots of other different he's effectively one of these men who's in the frontier, who through force and through just his pure size effectively has got his fingers in a lot of different pies of all the industry within a burgeoning frontier towns, communities, and soon to be state. The comparison I would give would be in the Billy the Kid stories, where you've got I can't remember the Irish guy's name now, but I think it was Murphy was the guy, and effectively was like a cattle rancher. He was a weapons manufacturer, and effectively this character in real life had his hand in a lot of different pies in the West. So that's just a real life comparison, anyways. But so we'll see him later on, and he's got a set of Mexican sort of banditos, or vaqueros as they're called in the books. So a lot of like hired hands who are Mexican fighters, Indian fighters, who are working out of the Culloden Ranch to protect the Glorious town, and also to protect the his McPherson's own industries and his interests. Then we've got the Apaches. So the Apaches, this is their indigenous land, and effectively they are picking off one by one prospectors, or the threat really looms large. In the book we don't really get to see the Apaches, which is a bit of a spoiler, but like in the movie Jaws, where the threat is always off screen, and is always penned in there like a good ghost story. They're always in the background. The threat of the Apaches definitely comes into play within the book and is used by certain characters to justify actions and their agendas. Then we got the prospectors. So prospectors, effectively, there was about a handful, maybe 2 dozen throughout the majority of the book, before the very end of the book, where it vastly expands, where there's a silver strike, a claim found. But we're introduced to one character called a preacher, Sheridan, who is a travelling preacher as well as a prospector as well. So we do see Cash speaking to Preacher, although he's a bit of a peripheral character, who really does sort of anchor and provide a base in which Cash can still speak to Gabrielle when he does go to Glorious, which I'll come on to now. That there's one of these frontier mining towns. They were a diverse place. So, like I said, you've got the Mexican banditos in the ranch. You've got immigrant families like the Toritos setting up their dry goods store. You've got indigenous Americans there as well, probably from back east and from the south. And also then we've got the Chinese. So the Chinese had actually travelled westwards rather than eastwards to get to the town of Glorious, where they they do laundry services. They are not treated equally in the book at all, and the sort of the overt casual 19th century racism for Oriental people, as they would call them, really does come out in the book, and they are othered quite a lot. But we do see there's one character, which is Sydney Chow, which is an American, American-born part of the Chinese community there, who she is effectively, treated more openly by Gabrielle and by Cash than any of the others. We've got Sheriff Saint. Now, Sheriff Saint does sort of grow through the book quite a lot, from being really sort of put down upon and made a bit of a sort of afterthought joke character at his first introduction. He does definitely grow as a character through the book and becomes more of a moral and a responsible anchor within the book for Cash and for Glorious itself as well. Then Bob Pugh is another character. So Bob Pugh is he's the livery owner. He becomes effectively Cash's best friend. Bob is on his own. He runs his own livery company in the town, and him and Major Malkins in the hotel and Cash effectively become like a triumvirate of friends, and they share very similar outlooks on the way the town is going, and same humour. They really do connect early on, quite quickly in the book as well, and Jeff Guinn really does a great job of playing that up too. And then we've got every single western town needs a saloon. So you've got the Oasis saloon, and that's run by I can't remember the character's name now. But effectively, it's run by you've got a gentleman running the saloon. You've got his wife who's there, but she also runs. Typically she runs the girls as well, who provide sexual services for people in the town as well. Then so. Out of the saloon, you've got the drink. It's the watering hole after the day's work, and then also they work hard and they play hard afterwards as well. Then, like a lot of western towns. So you see in the book that Jeff Guinn does really sort of nail all the sort of the main typical western establishments that you would find in any sort of basic frontier town. So onto the story then. Gabrielle spurns Cash. He goes to her. He quickly finds out that she's really over him, that she really didn't forgive him for what he did, which was leaving her, not coming back for their meetings, and sort of dropping their courtship to marry Ellen Douglas. So she's really bitter about that, and she's over it already, and she's moved on, but she's not willing to give Cash what he wants, which is to be swept off her feet and to go to California with him. And she's moved on. We quickly find out then that she's been frequented and she's been courted by the Sheriff Saint. And whilst he isn't the sort of the prototypical sort of like John Wayne masculine sheriff. He is more of a bookish, I would say, like the Sleepy Hollow Ichabod Crane character, a bit of a school teacher turned reluctant lawman on the frontier. Just because he seems a responsible person, that's the type of character that we're dealing with really in the book. And he, whilst he hasn't got the charisma or the obvious overt attraction that Gabrielle had with Cash, you can see in the book that the sheriff and Gabrielle do grow quite close together within the book as well. I would probably say he's the type of person that she probably would be happy to settle down with, and there would be no trouble, no obvious action. It comes across in that sort of way, whereas, you know, Cash is very much your sort of like action guy, action sort of you probably have a good fair few scrapes and some adventures if you chose Cash, is the way is the thing I'm trying to say. But so we're at that point. So he's trying to decide whether he stays in Glorious at all. He does decide to stay in Glorious purely because of the, like I mentioned before, the relationships he's the burgeoning relationships that he's created with the people in the town, not just with Gabrielle. So before, when he came in, it was a straight binary choice: yes or no. Is she gonna have me? Yes, we'll go to California. No, I might stay here and try and win her over. But then he becomes a bit despondent, and a lot of asking about whether he should stay there or not. What we see then is Cash actually dabbling in a lot of different things to do in the town itself. He doesn't want to just be a spare part, wasting his money in the hotel for weeks on end. So he tries his hand at prospecting, which is quite funny as well. He doesn't really know what to do. He's your typical sort of Easterner, not really adept at anything, you know, hard at hand, as like prospecting and looking for silver or gold or things of that nature. We see him trying to reconnect with Gabrielle when Preacher Sheridan holds a church in the hotel, like a church service in the hotel on the weekends. You know, he's slowly coming back into Gabrielle's life. There's quite a lot of hostility at first when they first meet, but slowly that sort of old connection grows back within the book as well, which is nice to see. We see Cash, there's a dance in the book as well. So they have at one point they have like a big sort of town get together, a town dance, and Cash is quite jealous that Gabrielle will not dance with him. So he takes Sydney Chow, which is the Chinese girl, and to everyone's astonishment, because of the obvious, sort of low regard they have for Chinese, that he takes her, has a dance with her. She enjoys it, but whilst they both know, and it's shown in the book that that's quite taboo for back then, which was sort of an interracial sort of display of affection, but we see that, and Gabrielle thinks that that's a lovely thing to have done for Sydney as well. Whilst Cash obviously using the dual thing of he likes Sydney Chow, as well as trying to show Gabrielle that he's not going to be, he's not going to be like a sad puppy on the side of the bar watching her dance with all the other guys there. Then we see him really sort of come back and display his diplomatic side. We see that the prospectors get into a bit of a fight with the Mexican vaqueros in the saloon, and there's about to be your typical Western shootout after a good few drinks have been had, and then Cash intervenes. He sees that the sheriff can't come in. He hasn't got the skills. He's not got the authority to come in and say, "Stop it! I'm the law. I say you put down your weapons. I'm taking you both in." Or whoever's gets shot to death, the other one's going to get you're going to get put into jail, and then you're going to be sent off down to the territorial capital, and you're going to get hung from your neck. Cash steps in, talks them both down because they don't want any trouble. The prospectors would likely have moved out then, and also the Mexicans would have lost one of their needed fighters, and they probably would have tried to take revenge on the prospectors. But so anyways, Cash talks them both down and says, "Stop! Stop what you're doing." And he's in a very skillful way that he does it. He gets the respect of a lot of people in the town, and they do take more of a shine to him. And then it quickly becomes, seen as as a leader character within the town, as somebody who's got integrity as well, which is a massive sort of contrast to what the reason why he's come to Glorious. And he doesn't really tell anybody why he's there, not even Gabrielle. So all the thing to do with the Douglas girl doesn't tell anybody at all until later on. Then we see part 2 of the book. So the first part was fantastic. The first half of the book was incredibly well written. I think that the setup of the book was really impressive. I would probably give, if the book ended there, I would probably give it a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. It was absolutely brilliant. I was hanging on everything that they were doing. I couldn't really wait to see what part 2 brought. Now, part 2 of the book is very, very interesting, but I think that the payoff of this book, and knowing that there was a trilogy, didn't really pay off as much as what I thought it was going to. It was quite satisfying, and it was a great idea for the rest of the book as well. But I will say, I think particularly the ending was a bit of an anticlimax. It does leave me wanting more, and I have got the other 2 books here, which is Buffalo Trail is book 2, and then the last book, which came out a couple of years ago, is Silver City. So, but anyways, I'll go to part 2 of the book, which is Mr. McPherson, the owner of Culloden Ranch and the guy in charge of the Mexican vaqueros. He wants McClendon to come to him after hearing what he's done at the saloon. And would you believe it? He offers McClendon the same opportunity to buy out and to be his number 2, to buy out everybody in the town of Glorious. And like he tells McClendon, there is going to be a silver strike. You can put your money on it. So effectively, Cash has got another opportunity to do the same thing again. He's learned his lesson from the first time. He keeps the integrity in which he's developed since he's had the incident in St. Louis, and he actually turns down McPherson, knowing that there'll probably be a repercussion on him, and he is warned not to tell anybody about the plans that McPherson has for the town. Then lo and behold, there's a silver strike, just like McPherson said, and immediately the town starts burgeoning. You got a lot more people moving in. There's more Chinese that come into the town, way more prospectors, because people are coming in there. You've got also the people who follow strikes back in them days, so people who assay the actual the metal and the deposits to see how pure it is, what type of silver that it is. You've got the people then who want to buy the claim from the actual prospector who found it. So a lot of different people, politicians, different business people moving in. Major Mulkins builds a second story on his hotel just purely because the demand is amazing. Everyone's doing record business, doubling their prices because they can afford to. So we have the silver strike, and then what we have then is that we have a family who move in, and the name might be familiar to you, but in the book it's obviously he's given a fictional sort of background. Is Ike Clanton. So the Clanton family, Ike Clanton's very famous. He was part of the shootout at the OK Corral between Wyatt Earp and the cowboy gang in Tombstone, Arizona, which would be a few years after this. But Ike comes in as a young guy in his 20s, and that opportunity that is offered to Cash in order to make everybody sell up in Glorious to McPherson, Ike takes it both hands, and he becomes the conduit then for McPherson in the town. Now, Bob Pugh, who Cash had actually moved in with and was working in the livery stables with him for a short while after moving out at the hotel. They become really good friends, and Bob says, "I'm not going to sell up, no way." But McPherson wants him to come out to the ranch, so he said, "I will. I'll drink his whiskey, I'll smoke his cigar, but I'm going to tell him I'm not selling." Anyways, Bob then is found dead on the trail back to Glorious. So Cash is immediately distraught. and knows that Macpherson means business, much like Rupert Douglas did back in St. Louis. So you're dealing with now, a guy who is willing to kill to get what he wants. So effectively, what we have here now is Cash, telling everybody in the town what Macpherson is planning. The governor visits, and lo and behold, they want to go and tell the governor, listen, this guy is going to be killing us all. We've got to protect our businesses. The governor is a good friend of Macpherson and is in the pocket of him as well. So Cash decides to go to the nearby US Army post, which is Camp McDowell, and requests the army to come to Glorious, effectively to protect them from the Apache threat, but using that sort of fake cover, he really wants the army there so he can disclose to them what Macpherson is doing. And we see then that Glorious is actually then, we see that the army, instead of going to the town of Glorious, goes straight to Macpherson, and he actually turns the tables back on Cash again and says, I agree, we should evacuate the town. So we have the majority of the people in Glorious have evacuated, save for you've got Major Malkins, a couple of the prospectors, Major Malkins, Cash, Mayor Rogers, the people at the Oasis as well, the crew. So they're there and they say, we're not going to sell, and we're not going to allow you to take what little we have in the town. We're going to defend you with everything we've got. So what we have then is a shootout between the Vaquero, the Mexican sort of Mexican Indian fighters, the Vaqueros, and the townspeople. Like, Ike Clanton is really duplicitous and uses the threat of Apaches in the town to lure out all the defenders from the saloon into a little hut where there's a shootout between the Vaqueros and the townspeople. At this point then, something incredible happens where you think they're just going to get shot down, they're going to get shot like dogs, and they're all going to be dead. Who turns up is this Brotigan Killer Boots character. Now, Killer Boots has been chasing Cash since he left St. Louis, and he's been found, and he was led there by one of the sort of whores, as they say, or the service girls in the saloon. The only person who Cash told about why he came from St. Louis happened to inform and tell Rupert Douglas where he was and what town. She was then rewarded with compensation so she could catch a steamship back to England, which is what she wanted to do all along. So this girl has told, and she was upset because her and Cash did develop. She did really like Cash, but she wanted to get back home more than she wanted him, and she sold him out pretty much. But Cash then, so Cash is in the fight with the Vaqueros, and Killer Boots is there. He actually comes in and smashes up a few of the Vaqueros before Major Malkins and a couple of the other characters arrest him, and Sheriff Saint, I should say, sorry, Sheriff Saint, who becomes more of a respectable leader at this point, who arrests Killer Boots brought again, and they, this is how the book ends, effectively, with the Vaqueros are defeated, and they cease the gunfight, and then this brought again Killer Boots character is arrested by Sheriff Saint, detained, and McClendon then, Cash McClendon, is told by his friends, look, you need to go now, you can't stay here, they know where you are, and he's going to get out of jail. He hasn't done anything wrong. We can hold him now, we can put our guns on him and hold him, but he's not going to be held forever, and he's going to come chasing you. And the book ends then with Cash fleeing, and it leads into the next book, which is Buffalo Trail. So I might actually pick that one up straight away and read that one, because I did like the way that followed on. It was very episodic, the way that the book ended, very much like watching a TV series or a movie that a sequel maybe is coming out within a year or in 6 months, so yeah, did really enjoy it. And the book overall, like I said, the first half of the book is fantastic, massive setup. The payoff could have been better. I probably would have given the payoff around 7 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, overall, if I'd average that out, then a 9 out of 10, 7 out of 10, put them together, I'm going to give the book a 4 out of 5, I would say, is the way I'll score it. 4 out of 5 stars. So, yeah, I mean, I hope you enjoy reading it if you do pick it up. I expect it. It doesn't even have to necessarily mean that you like westerns. This book was just a really interesting way, and I think that everyone likes a really well written book with really believable characters, and definitely this one was worth it. So yeah, if you can pick it up on Audible or Kindle, I'm assuming Audible will probably be a really good listen as well.